Hey, pop kids. Welcome back to Mark's NOTCAST. Normally I do one or two of these a week and I talk about music and stuff, but today is episode 400 and I was hoping to be able to have some special guests, but we haven't managed to sort out a date yet, so I'm going to be working on that. In the meantime, it is Tuesday. I think it's the 5th or 6th of August 2024. I am away this weekend seeing a band somewhere. That's a surprise, isn't it? And I've had an awful lot of gigs going on last month, which is one of the reasons why I haven't done quite so many of these. As this is number 400, normally I do something a little bit special and a little bit different. Today is no great surprise, but I am going to take a slightly different angle because today I'm going to be doing questions and answers, if any of you are interested, but they're not just questions which you will have picked because I'm going to do those separately. I have gone to the best of Smash Hits annual and picked out all the weird and unusual questions in there. As you can probably tell by the fact I've got little blue post-it notes there. And then I'm going to find out what the answers are to questions which they asked pop stars in the 80s in Smash Hits. Now for me, the music papers and they're called Inkies, the 80s, 90s were really, really formative for me. I used to read Melody Maker, NME, Sounds Before It Closed, Kerrang, Smash Hits. Obviously, Smash Hits got dropped pretty quickly when I discovered NME and Kerrang. And even until relatively recently, Kerrang was still a going concern, in so much as Kerrang TV closed a couple of weeks ago. And if you are in Britain and you want to pick up some cheap Kerrang merchandise, I'd suggest going to TK Maxx, where they have lots of it about. I may have spent some money in a TK Maxx recently. But there you are. So, Smash Hits. Smash Hits, one of the things I loved about Smash Hits is first and foremost, not only was Sir Neil of Tennant, the assistant editor of Smash Hits, and who later left to become an actual pop star. He coined the phrase "down the dumper," by the way, and did an excellent job. And of course, the idea is that most journalists are failed pop stars. Well, like Morrissey and Neil Tennant, sometimes you can be a failed journalist turned into a pop star. And lo and behold, there's a bunch of questions about the Morrissey, the Moz father, there, which I may or may not go on to. Then, of course, there is Ask a Silly Question, which is here. Does your mother play golf, amongst other things? But also, and perhaps most interestingly, actually, is the bit where they have the Margaret Thatcher interviews, actually. Now, that is a pretty strange one, the Margaret Thatcher interview, which suggests that you should ask Margaret Thatcher Smash Hits questions. Of course, before we get any further, still hate Thatcher. For reasons which I agree with entirely, of course, because I think them, but I might get to that later on. So we're going to go for Ask a Silly Question in Smash Hits. So there you are. Now, these are all questions that were asked of famous people in the 80s. I, of course, not being famous and only having spent 10 years in the 80s as opposed to having been famous in the 80s, or never actually having been famous, we will go with some answers. So one of them is, do you empty your own Hoover bag? Well, no, I don't, on the grounds that... Actually, no, I do. I have a hand Hoover and I empty it whenever I need to. But of course, Hoover bags were this terrible, terrible idea in the 80s, is that you had like a brown cardboard bag, like a Jiffy bag, and it was full of dust and other horrible stuff. And you then kind of emptied it into a bin. These days, of course, they're all in plastic. Yes, I empty my own Hoover bag. There you have it. How exciting is that? Well, don't worry, there's plenty more to come, which is how do you like to travel? Now, Steve Strange from Visage, who I think has died, said by carpet. How do I like to travel? Well, by train, actually, because trains are awesome and my driving is atrocious. So, did you ever pass your cycling proficiency test as a child? Now, that was a question to John Taylor of Duran Duran. Other John Taylors are available. John Taylor says, no, I didn't. And that question, did I pass my cycling proficiency test? No, I just got on a bike and I did it, because sometimes that's how you live, isn't it? You just do that. And suddenly, like, when people go, you know, you can read books and you can learn how to do something. Like, learn? No, I'm just going to do it. Which might explain why when I went to university and I started cooking I learned by reading the instructions. I didn't realise you actually had to, prick sausages before you cook them. I thought they'd naturally cook. I didn't understand why they were burnt on the outside and frozen on the inside. I didn't realise what you had to do is you had to actually penetrate them with a fork to cook them, because I'm not an idiot. Well, I mean, I am, but I'm not. Yeah, I am, but I won't tell you why I am. How would you say you got on with Jerry Hall's ponies? So that is a question to the Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. Well, I can't answer that because I've never actually got on with Jerry Hall's ponies. And here's a question for Stephen Dennis. Ooh, don't it make you feel good? Former Neighbours actor, one-hit wonder in 1988. What colour is happiness? So Stephen Dennis thinks blue and yellow, the colours of Ukraine. I, of course, obviously think that the colour of happiness is black, because that's my favourite colour. And well, actually, no, it isn't actually. My favourite colour is a kind of metallic blue. I wouldn't want to live in a place that's metallic blue, but there you are. And I do like it. I think it's a good colour on record sleeves. I think it's black is a fantastic colour on clothing. I think when it comes to men's fashion, actually, by the way, the trousers should always be darker than the shirt, unless the shirt is black, at which point you can go otherwise, like it rotates. But you shouldn't wear black and black. You shouldn't wear blue and blue, really. Your trousers should always be a different colour to the shirt, and it should be darker. But black is, I'm only happy when it rains. So there you are. What colour is January? Well, of course, it's a kind of pale grey. Because pale grey is the colour of old snow, and I think that January should be a pale grey, on the grounds that even though every January is 31 days, sometimes they feel like they're 367 days long. And also white is fresh, whereas I think of a pale grey, kind of like a dirty lived-in grey, as the colour of January, because by the time I get to the end of January, I'm really fed up. The other thing about Januaries, and I will say this in full transparency, is I don't like the end of January or early February. I had something that happened on the first Thursday in February, 12 years apart, one in 2000, one in 2012, which were really bloody horrible experiences. Two of the most traumatic experiences in my life, even more traumatic than seeing Green Day. And for me, January is one of my least favourite months. Also, if you're working, you get paid sometimes you get paid like last working day of December, which for some people is, 21st of December. And then you have to go 40 days between getting paid, which is not good. Very difficult. Too much month at the end of my money is the phrase, I think. Are you any good at potato sculptures? Well, that's for Nick Kamen, whose brother Chester, played with David Gilmour and Roger Waters. No, I'm not, unless you count chips as potato sculptures. What is the secret of the universe? Well, Alison Moyet, one of the finest people on the planet, said, I think the world is a dead carcass, and I think the purpose of human beings is as maggots. We're stripping the dead flesh off the carcass. Well, to me, the secret of the universe is perhaps something a little bit more optimistic, which is be excellent to each other, follow the Tao of Bill and Ted, don't go being a twat now, and always remember to tell cats that they're beautiful. What is your favourite item of clothing? Oh, that's good. That's good. I should have got it out, actually. So I have my favourite item of clothing is probably a T-shirt from the Atomium in Brussels, which is a science museum in the shape of a giant exploding atom. It's super cool, and I think it's just an awesome building. It's probably my favourite building in the world, apart from my house. And it's also one of my favourite T-shirts because I think the Atomium is awesome. And it represents the promise and the optimism of a future that never quite came to pass. Retrofuturism is a really big thing, by the way. But that's another thing. Do you like sardines? No. Have you ever considered posing in the news? Well, Nick Haywood would do it for £39.50 a session. For me, I would do it for £39 million, 50 pence. So, if you've got £39 million and 50 pence, sure. If you haven't, sorry, you don't get to see that. I don't think anyone's really heartbroken about it. If you were married to Freddie Mercury, Would you let him keep the moustache? Okay, so Susanna Hoff to the Bangles says, I'm not into that. I really like clean shaven guys. To me, if I was married to Freddie Mercury, ultimately, people change over time, don't they? I've got a beard, not got a beard. I got hair, I not got hair. It's the person, isn't it? That you're into, as opposed to the moustache. I think my mum didn't like my dad having a moustache, and if that was the case, then I would have been like, yeah, I'm shaving the moustache off, baby. But no, not the case. My dad kept the moustache. So there you go. Have you ever been beaten up for no reason? Well, Lloyd Cole said yes, and the answer is, have I ever been beaten up for no reason? I think so. Yeah. When I was about 16 or so, somebody just didn't like the look of me with glasses, and we were just confused, actually, because there were two of us, and we were like, what is she doing around all of that? And we were just confused, really. And I'm like, why are you hitting me? So yes is the answer. I wouldn't tolerate that crap now. I'll put it that way. Has getting married changed your relationship? Well, Simon Le Bon has an answer for that, and I have been married, and I probably, I don't talk about my personal life for reasons, which I can't, which obviously people who know me outside of the screen know about, but people that see me on YouTube don't. So there you are. So I don't talk about my personal life at all. What is the stupidest thing you did as a kid? Honestly, when I was a kid and we went on holiday to Spain, what I used to do is that the balconies at the hotel in Lloret de Mar in Spain, you could walk from them, and the gap between rooms was quite small. So actually, I used to climb outside and then walk on the outside of the balconies, 6-7 stories up, and then go between rooms as opposed to knocking on the doors. And I could do this quite a lot, actually, and I thought it was hilarious, and now I just think it's absolutely stupid. But that is that. What is the worst song that you've ever written? Okay, so George Michael. If you like Bad Boys by Wham, or George Michael says, I hate it, it's like an albatross around my neck. For me, the worst song I have ever written is called Truckers in Space, and I tried to find a copy of it recently. It was an attempt to follow the plot line of a Dennis Hopper movie of a very similar name about truckers in space, and it was inspired by the Pixies. And I was trying to write songs that sounded like other people. I thought, can I write a song that sounds like the Pixies? And the answer is yes, but it's crap. So it's awful. And there you go. Do you believe human beings can spontaneously combust? That's Roland Gift from the Fine Young Cannibals. And he says, I think it's probably caused by people's pacemakers and things exploding. I'd love to see it. I don't necessarily think people can spontaneously combust, but that's not to say that it doesn't happen. But this is something that I learned from a conversation with a fire safety man, is that you need three things for a fire to start. You need ignition, you need combustion, and you need ammunition. Basically, you need fuel. And if you haven't got one of those, it doesn't happen. So it's not likely that people can spontaneously combust. It's not impossible, but it's very, very unlikely, I think. And it's probably not even spontaneous. It's probably something like accidentally touching something that's got an electrical current that's then touching something else, and that type of thing. Have you ever heard voices in your head? Chris Lowe. Yes, I used to pretend that Tchaikovsky could compose through me, and it worked. Me, no, I've never heard voices in my head. I have a huge internal monologue, like lots of people. You can probably work out on the grounds that I'm sat here talking to myself, to my phone, to a tiny number of people on YouTube, that I do have voices in my head for an internal monologue. But I don't have a voice that goes, do something terrible, or the Babadook, or something like that. So, no, I don't. How come you share your life with two fawns, a sheep, a llama, a boa constrictor, and an aviary? So that is a question for Michael Jackson, not a question for me. So the question would be for me, how can you share your life with 3 cats? And the answer to that is because I love cats. Black cats are awesome. Black cats are associated with being a witch. I am a man, so therefore I have 3 black cats, and that makes me a goddamn wizard. Did you have any strange habits as a youngster? Yeah, I would love to sit on my front, I think. And I really made sure that everything had to follow the rule of straight lines. So, for example, if there's like a table or something and you put something at an angle, it feels wrong. It has to be at a straight line. It has to line up. So that's not weird. That's probably just an undiagnosed ADHD or autistic trait. Did you ever have a rocking horse when you were a child? Well, Dave Garr never had one, and neither did I. Why did you get so fat? So that's a question for Jim Kerr of Simple Minds. And actually, I've not really talk about this, but I recently went on a diet. I changed my my diet. I changed some of my activities. I increased the amount of exercise that I've got. I've moved towards low sugar, low fat. I stopped drinking, determined way a few years ago. I've lost about 30 pounds since Christmas. And so therefore, but why did I get so fat? Well, obviously I treated my body like a temple, and it was a temple of doom. And so I thought anything I put into it, my body could digest, process, as if I was indestructible, like, a character that keeps dying in a movie, but miraculously comes back somehow. Palpatine returns. And so how did I get so fat? Well, I stopped caring. I just thought, well, I've been used to, and also gaining weight can sometimes be very, very gradual. I mean, I went to the States in 2004, and I suddenly went up like 4 inches on my waist size. In the way that, when you go to Europe or another country and you go, oh, so an XL in America is a 48-inch waist size, and in Britain it's a 44-inch waist size, or however you want to describe it. When I went to America and I was in clothes that were 40s, and I was like, okay, so I guess the American size is the American size. And then I didn't realise for many years that actually I'd just gone up 4 inches in the 3 weeks I was in America, driving around Route 66, eating enormous portions of junk food. I just put 4 inches onto my waistline straight away. And then I went back down to 36, and I've still got those trousers now from 20 years ago. So that's how I got fat, is I stopped caring, and it was gradual. And then I changed it and turned it around. And I'm now at a waist size which I was at probably 15 years ago. That's quite nice, actually. Yeah, it's quite good. But I feel healthier. I don't get so tired walking upstairs or doing physical exercise or anything like that. What's the most horrid thing you have ever done? Well, mid-year once threw a cream pie in a girl's face, and the most horrid thing I've ever done is I've hurt people. And I had a moment when I realised I wasn't the one that was hurting. I was the one that was doing the hurting. That was many years ago, and it changed my life, and I became a lot more considerate and a lot more thoughtful after that. What's your favourite word to use on Call My Bluff? Well, my word is going to be Quetzal, which is a South American bird. It's the highest scoring 7-letter word on Scrabble, because it's got a Q and a Z in it. And it's a good word to use on Call My Bluff. Another word is poltroon, which is, by the way, the same word that's chosen by Roland Orzabal of Tears for Fears, and that means a spiritless coward, a contemptible idiot. If you were a car, what kind of car would you be? Oh, I got asked this question when I was doing a job interview in 1997, and my answer then was considerably more boring than it should have been, because my answer then was a Range Rover, because it's good on the roads and it's good off-road, and so it's suitable for both terrains, just like me. Hire me, I need a job. But if I was a car, what car would I be? I'd be a comfortable one that doesn't go too fast and has a slightly sarcastic set of headlights. It's probably the best way to describe it. In the Cars universe, it wouldn't be the Popemobile, because that makes you wonder, doesn't it, the existence of the Popemobile in Cars. Is if there's a Popemobile in Cars and the Pope does the Popemobile as a car go inside a larger car, and then it kind of gets put into something like the car equivalent of a kangaroo's pouch? No. So my favourite car would probably be a comfortable one. Although, if that was the car, I would be. But my favourite car in the world is probably the Wienermobile, actually. Google it. There's a car in the shape of a hot dog that drives around in America. That is awesome, but totally impractical. And I think that should be used in a car chase, ideally in a Burt Reynolds film in 1983 called Cannonball Run 1.5. Do you think the Antiques Roadshow is boring? Well, the answer is from Owen Paul, and I don't know who that is. He's not a YouTuber because YouTube hadn't even been invented at that point. Antiques Roadshow is quite boring, but I'm quite boring, so sometimes I watch it. Can you think of a poem about wet, wet, wet? Okay, yeah. I don't like Marty Pellow. He is a silly fellow. Their music is bland. I would like to crush them with my justiced hand. There you go. That's only 4 lines, and that follows a very standard rhyming structure of AA, BB. I should probably do something a little different. I hate wet, wet, wet. They make music that makes me want to forget all my manners and all my grace. I would like to crush them and their stupid faces. That doesn't rhyme. Okay, basically not a fan of wet, wet, wet. And were I Jarvis Cocker on top of the pops opening the little blazer that says "I hate wet, wet, wet" during the live transmission of, I think it's Do You Remember the First Time in 1994. Don't worry, pop pickers. An episode on His and Hers by Pulp, not Wet, 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 is coming up soon. I own no records by Wet, Wet, Wet. I try not to think about them. They are awful. I mean, if you can be anything in the world, why would you want to make music so incredibly dull? Do you put up your own shelves? Alison Moyet, I don't, but I've just built a chicken shed. So yes, by the way, I do put up my own shelves. All the shelves behind me, all of the shelves that these are on, I made those myself. It was very boring. I had a whole bunch of DVD commentaries. I remember doing it in September, early September 2016. And it was the whole of a Saturday. I did it bit by bit. It was very boring and very liberating, actually, to standardise the shelves. So yes, I do my own shelves. I make my own cupboards. I make my own furniture. I've got a scar on my thumb here that you can't see from where I accidentally hammered my thumb, which is not a Rolling Stones song. Have you ever milked a cow? John Taylor, Duran Duran. No, but I'm working on it. Mark Reed of Absolutely Not Duran Duran. No, and I'm not working on it. How successful was the hair transplant? No, never had one. Is that not obvious? Gary Newman says, it was perfect. It hurt a bit, but it was worth it. I had 96 plants and only one turned out dodgy. What's your favourite item of clothing? Well, I've answered that already. Did you know that the world's biggest spider has a leg span of 10 inches? Kim Appleby from Mel and Kim goes, I think I did, yes. Me from Mark and nobody else says, yes, and I do not like spiders. Absolutely not. I'm not a fan of arachnids or generally anything that's got more than about 4 legs. I don't think I like anything that's got more than 4 legs as an animal at all. You think about the more legs, the scarier it becomes. And obviously that makes a millipede the most scary, terrifying object in the universe, which isn't strictly true because I've met a couple of my exes who only have 2 legs, or at least they only had 2 legs at the time I knew them. Maybe some of them have only got 1 leg now. I don't know. Have you ever thought you were a bus stop? Shane McGowan, sort of. Me? No. Are you any good at marbles? Fish of Marillion? No, but I'm not bad at basketball and I play table tennis as well. Me? No, I am not good at marbles. What's your best excuse? What's the best excuse you use to get out of PE? Honestly, I wore glasses and there was a couple of sessions of PE where it was stuff where you get hit in the face a lot and it might break my glasses and I didn't want to do it. In fact, I remember one time I was playing something and I ran off the pitch and the school teacher was like, why did you run off the pitch? And I was, because I can't see, you idiot. Which was, and still is absolutely true, of course, because if you're not wearing glasses, you can run off a pitch. Have you ever owned an Austrian shepherd boy puppet? Good Lord, no. If you were a kangaroo, what would you keep in your pouch? Well, I would keep, probably Elon Musk's credit card, I think. What do you wear in bed? Not telling you. Sometimes nothing, sometimes something. It depends on how warm it is. Oh my God, there are more pages of this than we can get through. So I think I'm going to stop in a bit. I think at the end of page 3. I was hoping I'd do all the questions, but probably not. So have you got any nice crockery? Well, Holly Johnson, yes. Me, yeah, I do. Yeah, actually I have a nice collection of royal family themed mugs, which you might not believe. But every time I go into like a thrift store and I see a royal family themed mug, I'll pick it up. It's normally for royal families that have divorced, like the disgraced Prince Andrew, who doesn't sweat, the sweatless wonder, and Sarah Ferguson, Prince Charles and Princess Diana. I've got a couple of their wedding mugs. I've got, I think, a couple of Queen Elizabeth Jubilee ones from 2002. I think I've got a Queen Mum one somewhere. And I just like the idea of buying them and quietly mocking the concept of a royal family, because I'm not a royalist at all. The idea that by a divine bloodline somehow you would be worthy of better and a more privileged life than anyone else because of the family you were born into and not on merit seems absurd and ridiculous to me, almost as absurd and ridiculous as some of the Fast and Furious movies. Have you ever placed a Lonely Hearts ad? Well, Morrissey answered that, and my answer is no, I haven't. I have done the online dating thing, but that was a very long time ago, and yeah, the world was very different. Did you ever phone a number at random and annoy the person at the other end? Tanita Tickeram, yes, I did. For me, yes, it wasn't at random. I was talking to a girl who I thought I liked, and she gave me a phone number, which was 770-5519, which when you look at it into a mirror, it says piss off, by the way. I thought nothing of it, rang the number, got to speak to a lovely old lady who said, I hope you find that woman, she sounds quite nice. Didn't necessarily realise that perhaps it was only afterwards I then realised, oh yeah, I've been had. Okay, have you ever been so violently sick that your earrings fell off? Unsurprisingly, no. Where do all the missing pens in the world go? Patsy Kensit thinks there's a creature in the woods that eats them. Me, I think that there is actually an underverse, like the King Kong and Godzilla movies, and they just kind of slip through holes in reality to a place of lost pens. Okay, I haven't really thought that one through, but there you are. Have you ever thought that the world was just a little crouton floating in God's minestrone copper soup? Well, Glenn Medeiros has an answer, but I'm not going to read that. I prefer to think of us as being, on the back of a turtle flowing through space, because Terry Pratchett was right about almost everything, and the world would be a much better place if he was still here. Have you ever accidentally swallowed a fly? Well, Belinda Carlisle has on a motorcycle. I've had a daddy long legs fly into my mouth because I was yawning coming out of a Woolworths in Cottridge, Birmingham, in the 90s. And it's like, and then I was like, took it out, and it was horrible and gross and disgusting. I think that was the day I bought Nine Inch Nails' Downward Spiral on CD. Yeah, maybe 94 or something. Long time ago. What was your biggest thrill as a child? Well, Toya says nothing whatsoever. I hated every minute. My biggest thrill as a child was probably reading the Guinness Book of Records, Guinness Book of World Records, and finding out new and scary, weird things, watching interesting television, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. when Star Trek The Next Generation was on. That's probably my biggest thrill. Do you think flowers scream when you pick them? Well, Dave Vanian of The Dam says very possibly. I think they don't have vocal cords because so they can't scream in the way in which you would expect them to. But there are studies that show that if you shout at a plant, its stress levels elevate because it's unexpected sound. So I think whatever the equivalent is of screaming for a flower is that they might very well do those. What is your least favourite expression? Oh, okay. So fair play. I don't like that one. And I just think, what really? And my bad, I don't like my bad because it just sounds like it's a 7-year-old. Grammatically and syntax and in terms of use of literature, it's very, very lazy to say my bad at all. It's like when people use double negatives in sentences, and you kind of go, what are you actually saying? You didn't do nothing. What do you mean? You either did nothing or you didn't do anything. If you didn't do nothing, well, it means you did something. So those kind of things. So those are my least favourite expressions. In much the same way as Do You Know What I Mean is probably one of my least favourite Oasis singles, because it's like, no, I don't know what you mean, because if I did, you'd have expressed it already. What did I have for breakfast for morning? Well, the same thing I normally have, which is a bowl of shreddies in milk, and I have a chocolate muffin, a small one, and that's really nice, and I have a load of pills and medication. Because pills for breakfast, quoting the great Faith No More, is one of the things that I do. What keeps you awake at night? From Shirley, and Pepsi and slowly is sneezing. So what keeps me awake at night is my brain won't stop yapping in my own head. It won't. It just keeps talking, going, have you thought about this? Do you realise if you did this with this, and then you did that with that, and then that, and then this, oh, wouldn't it be better if this happened? And it's like, imagine what a singer would say in between the songs if, for example, Bono from U2 was doing an Acton Baby 30 set, and he could do his, what's his shtick going to be like? And I'm sat there going, brain, that's lovely. Can I go to sleep? And it's like, no, you can't go to sleep. I'm going to make you think about things. Because, as you've probably already worked out, the inner monologue never shuts up, ever. Always there. In my dreams, it's always there, much like the song, The Number of the Beast. If you had 15 minutes to live, what would you do? Honestly, I'd call the people that I love and tell them I love them. And then I might have a nice cold glass of chocolate milk. Did you ever pull the legs off of Daddy Long Legs? Philip Schofield. That didn't age well. I never did that, but I did bite the top off a rabbit's ear once. Okay. So now, did I ever pull the leg? No, because I'm not weird. I never looked at animals and thought, oh, I can kill it. It bleeds. We can kill it. I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Predator. Never pulled the legs off of Daddy Long Legs. What's the point? And what are your ambitions? Toya would want to be an astronaut or a member of the SAS. For me, I just want to be happy. That's my biggest ambition, because I've been unhappy, really unhappy, and it really sucks. Have you ever hit your sister with a wet fish? No. And I don't have a sister, and I've never hit anyone with a wet fish. How would you describe yourself? Well, in 5 words, it would be I am, and then the 3 words that are my name. I think would be the right way to describe it. And if you can be yourself, then that's the biggest achievement that you can make. And what were you in a previous life? I think I had a better head of hair. And then finally, two last questions. Why did you wear men's suits for Annie Lennox? She said she wanted to look like a white Grace Jones. Why did I wear men's suits? Because I was a man. So, and I had to. And luckily the world is more relaxed these days. And what would you do if you were Prime Minister? Wow, that's a great question. Count Bin Face is an inspiration to me. I am considering standing for election as a joke candidate, but I don't necessarily want to do it just yet. So what would I do if I was Prime Minister? Well, the first thing is I would employ about 3,000 extra people into Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs to close the 38 billion tax gap that we have. When people are talking about how there's a 20 billion funding hole in the public sector, you can close that by half just by collecting all the tax which is owed and evaded by people that don't pay their fair share of tax. Tax is the price we pay for a civilised society. And so I get 3,000 more people employed by HMRC to help collect 38 billion of uncollected tax. The second thing I would do would be to look at rules and laws that we have around things like, terrorism and white supremacy, and to be able to classify that kind of behaviour, including the rioting that we've recently had in the UK, as acts of terror. The third thing I would do would be to stop trying to scare the BBC talking about removing its licence fee. I'd fund the BBC properly. The fourth thing I would do would be, Count Bin Face wants to nationalise Adele. So the fourth thing I would do would be to bring back a 3rd season of The Tripods to finally finish the 1980s television show. The fourth thing I would do would be to adequately fund the NHS and the public sector. So when I worked somewhere in local government in London, it became very obvious that for every £1 that was spent in, pre-adolescence investment in children's services, it reduced the total life cost of £7 of post-adolescence costs such as social care, policing, NHS and so on. So I'd invest that money correctly and adequately. The fifth thing I would do is I would set term limits onto the House of Lords, and I would mean that people such as prime ministers can't just appoint people into the House of Lords. It would have to be representative to a vote, so they could put somebody up and then the people could vote on it once a year if they wanted those people to be Lords or not. The sixth thing I would do would be to ban the use of speaker phones as playing mobile music out in public. I think the seventh thing I would do, I would make it illegal to wear open-toed sandals as a bloke. I've seen your hooves, guys. They're fugly. No one needs to see them this time of year. And finally, my eighth thing that I would do as Prime Minister would be that I would make it illegal for former Prime Ministers or politicians to go into broadcasting, television and so on before or after. I'd make it easier to sack MPs as well. That's basically the first eight things I thought of. The ninth one has already happened. It would be to get the band Hope of the States to reform. But they've reformed and they're playing shows in December. So I'm super, super happy about that. So I don't need to do that now. All it took was a Labour government for the band to reform. So brilliant. That's where I'm going to wrap up episode 400. Sorry I'm not seeing my special guests, but I'll do it some other time. And I'll try to do another one of these before I go away to Brighton for the weekend. For those of you who are in Brighton at the weekend, I will see you there. And for those of you who aren't, I won't. Although the last time I went, last year, a guy came up and started talking to me who was watching it from, I think, Cologne or Copenhagen. And I'm very sorry that I wasn't perhaps more appreciative. It was the first time anyone I had no idea existed had come up and started talking to me in public about the NOTCAST. But if you're there this weekend, great, say hello. And if you're not, have a lovely time watching this. But don't forget to watch the YouTube stream of the show, which I'm going to. I'm not going to tell you where it is or what it is, on the grounds that there is, and this is why I don't talk about my personal life, there's somebody that has an unhealthy interest in my life that I used to have a relationship with and enjoys finding out when things good, bad or ugly happen to me. So I'm very particular about the information I put out in the world. But of course, as you will know, I am not particular or shy about telling you I have cats. This is Mog, not the actual Mog who's currently downstairs, but this is another Mog, a pet Mog. And I'd like to end the episode by bringing Mog up to the camera and obscuring the view. Worship your cat overlord.